Hello, everyone. So if you weren't part of the program earlier or weren't there, again, this is Xing. I am the lead artist on Togethernet project. This was a team effort. My teammates are not here in the workshop, but I just want to highlight them as well. The lead software developer, Charlotte Yaching Wen, really pulled the rope and made this happen, as well as our lead writer, Nema Gidere, who also unfortunately is on an airplane right now and can't be here. And there's also our advisor, Lauren Lee McCarthy, and just want to take a moment and appreciate their effort and all the work that make this happen. So to give myself a visual description, I have asymmetrical short hair with yellow and green streaks, and I am in a rather sunny room with white walls and a drawing on the wall hung and a window with AC under it and a plant. I am a light yellow skinned East Asian female, and I am currently wearing a dark gray shirt with a light gray apron over it. And it is really, really wonderful to be with you all here today. So the participants who are here for the workshop, would you mind actually giving me a signal, maybe using thumb up or using the chat feature so that I know how many people are here? Either Jay or Idan, how many people do you think we are expecting?
Perhaps one or two more, but it looks like I think we have 5 or 6 folks on the line right now, and Peyton will, or I will admit them as they arrive. But yeah, I think we're ready to go.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. So hi everyone. So I think, I would like this to be a workshop as much as possible, even though we are being live streamed, and I know this is kind of a double situation here. But for me, a workshop is not a place where I talk to you. A workshop is where we, participate and sort of collaborate as much as possible, especially given the topic today, which is on data placemaking and co-writing a community statement together. So maybe if it's all right with you all, would you mind, maybe we go around, and if you would like to unmute your mic and tell us your name and pronouns, that would be wonderful. Or if you feel like, turning on your camera and say your name and pronouns and give a visual description of yourself, that would be great too. I go by they, them, by the way. Is that all right to do that? Okay, so I'm gonna mental note the people who gave thumbs up. So if it's okay, I'm gonna popcorn to Alex.
Thank you. So I'm Alex. I go by she, her. I'm a green tinged white skinned woman wearing red glasses with past my shoulder length dark hair. It's my first time trying a description. Sitting on a light tan couch with parts of 2 paintings with greens and yellows and blacks and reds on them behind me. I think that covers it. And I'll pass to, was it Nat? Did Nat raise a hand? maybe not. Someone in the chat.
I know I didn't see Nat, but I know that Margarita, I believe, have raised their hand.
Margarita right below. I'll pass to Margarita.
Hi there. I'm having Wi-Fi issues, so I'm just hoping that like the having my screen turned off will keep it going. But I'm Margarita. I go by she, her. I am a mixed Filipino American person living in New York. I am wearing a rust-colored turtleneck and jeans, and I'm sitting in my living room / now kitchen space in my apartment. And I also didn't see who else was next. So if anyone else would like to go, please feel free.
I can go next.
Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Yamur. My pronouns are she, her. To visually describe myself, I'm a white woman with dark brown hair and dark brown eyes, and I'm wearing a black sweater, and I'm sitting in front of a lightly colored wall with 2 shelves. I'll pass it to Victoria, maybe.
Or anyone else who feel inclined to tell me yourself and introduce yourself. Okay, so I also just want to acknowledge that this is, it's a kind of a funny situation. We're being live streamed and we're doing a workshop, and clearly, it's a public situation, and so like that definitely could really affect our speech, affect the things that we say, versus if it's a closed session, and I think that's the situation, and I would just like to acknowledge it, and so I think we can actually jump right into just some flow and some plans. There actually isn't. Okay, so this is really interesting. Like Shanae, who is like the other organizer, we are actually like, we've been working a lot together recently, and usually I am like such a slideshow heavy person. I'm like, so I get like obsessed with my slideshow. I like put it together and like, yeah, let's like slide it through. But Shanae is like, it's like today we like row switch, and like today I was like, no, I don't feel like today is a slideshow day. and I think I think that in terms of like thinking about placemaking and thinking about placemaking in relation to data, I would like to invite you all to use our memories as a resource. Our memory as a resource for our possible, metaphorical slideshow. So that's kind of the plan. Surprise, no plan. No, there's a plan, I promise. And so here, the first thing I would like to do is actually taking, I would say like about 10 minutes for us to actually go through the code of conduct as well as the code of consent. So there's like a lot of words. So I'll contextualize a little bit. The code of conduct is more standard, community code of conduct in terms of like just like thinking about like how we want to be with each other and how we want to talk with each other and how we want to be talked to. So that's the document, sorry, the website that I have here. Just give me a moment. Okay, I'm gonna drop it inside of the chat, so people inside of the Zoom can see it, can read it, but then I'm also going to screen share it and just gradually browse through it, and so that people through the live stream can also get a sense of what's involved. So I guess I just have an open question. My thought relating to like, like what we could be listening to when we are like going through the code of conduct and the code of consent, we just kind of, there's like quite a bit of reading, is maybe we can like suggest a place, a place in, outside, like in the IRL, in the real world, to, and like play a kind of ambient, environment sound from that place, and kind of easing to like the idea of like beginning to think of a place, and what places mean, and what kind of, I don't know, what kind of boundaries are being created, or what kind of safety or what sense of welcomeness happens in those spaces. Does anyone have any suggestion of a place that you would maybe rather be right now?
A park?
An arc?
No, a park.
A park.
But that's an interesting idea.
I was like, I don't know what that is. Yeah, a park. Okay, give me a moment. I'm gonna find the sounds that come from a park, and I'm gonna, share and play that.
You just became muted.
Oops, sorry. That happens. Okay, so that what I just shared inside the chat was the code of conduct, and here's the code of consent. The code of consent is, it's basically like Togethernet's like our own version of terms and agreements in terms of software. I mean, that's like kind of like my imperfect entry point to explaining what it is. Like Nema, who is the lead writer on this project, we don't want to like, it's not illegal. It's like, we're not interested in like staying within that legal framework because usually terms and agreement are extremely unconsentful when it comes to like, throwing in a lot of legal languages that most people are not going to read and can't understand, not accessible. But this code of consent document, the purpose of that is to make sure that what is happening in the software is well communicated, and that hopefully, and I would love to hear feedback if it is clear, of like, how this software relates to your data, and how things are, how connections are being dealt with. So I'm gonna give us like maybe 10 minutes to do that. And please unmute yourself and ask any questions at any given time. Feel free to interrupt and like, or type it in to the chat. Either way, whatever makes sense to you is all very welcomed. I'm gonna go find the sound of a park right now. And I'll be back. Okay, so I found a 14 minutes park sound this is from, I don't know how to pronounce that exactly, Angov Park from Copenhagen, Denmark, recorded in August 2010.
mọi hình. Thôi đi.
Okay. So I know that was a lot of content. Were you all able to finish? Great. And I guess this is maybe where we could pause and do a kind of temperature check in terms of, I guess the first question is, are you feeling information overloaded now? Like 1 to 5, use your hand or typing to the chat. 1 being, you feel very relaxed, and 5 being like stressed out and have a lot of questions. So I'm seeing a 2 here. 2. So there's 2 2s. And I'm not able to, okay, I don't think I see other people, but okay, 2 to 3. That's honestly better than I expected. We work a lot on this part to like try to figure out how to maintain a good balance. 4. Do you want to describe what kind of I'm sorry to hear that. So I guess maybe the next step is kind of opening up. Does anyone have any questions about, any of it, any aspects of the things we read? And also, you can always ask question at any time once we enter the software space as well. All right, so I'm gonna continue. So as we know, we're here to create. I don't think it's the goal is to like have a finished community agreement, because that's not possible within this time frame, and also without being able to think and pause in between too much. But I do think that the goal is to begin and to depart and to start having some initial ideas. So is that okay with everyone? The idea of like beginning to generate something that can be the start of a community statement or a community agreement. So the goal here is to think about, like the title is data placemaking, and essentially part of the process of thinking about how to design Togethernet, from our team's perspective. This whole time, this whole fellowship, and this whole process has been trying to think about how to reframe the web and the internet as a space that has distinction between public and privates. And like in our everyday world, I think there's a lot of kind of like generational, even ancestral, like notion and intuition of like what is private and what is public when we are, with friends inside, like I don't know, inside an enclosed area. Like we talk differently compared to, if we pass by a police station or something. There's like very different like intuition and socialized intuition, right, of like knowing what to say when and how. And how loud, and who should be hearing and who is not hearing it. And so but that sense of like gut feeling of like private versus public, and obviously it's not a binary, there's all these gradients in between, is very much lost when it comes to like interaction with the online space. So I mean, in my opinion. So like when I fill out the form, and when I click a button, I have no idea where that data is going to, right? It's just there is only a kind of like like gloss over explanation of what I'm doing, but there isn't a clear understanding of how that how database or how spaces on the internet translate into actual infrastructure or space or spatial relations, and also who's watching or who gets to watch and who isn't. and so I think one of like my opening question for all of us that maybe hopefully can kind of like serve as a starting point is what, like in your experience, what do you think, like what are some communications, like what do you think a communication software has to be or has to do in order for you to feel a sense of privacy? And feel free to unmute yourself, but if you type into the chat, I will just read it out loud, unless, feel free to also say in the chat if you don't want me to read it.
I guess this is not very well thought out, well considered, but questions of privacy for me show up around my sense of the business model, the purpose of the software. Like, so the usual, the most obvious thing to talk about is like Facebook or Google that make their money on data. I don't even consider the possibility of privacy, even though I don't really believe they're literally all sitting there reading my messages one by one. I just lower my expectations to nothing because their purpose is to figure out ways to use data. So, so I'm not a person, I'm material. I don't know what helps me feel safer or more private in other places though. So I can just start there.
I feel the same in terms of business model and making profit. Maybe what makes me feel a bit safer is acknowledging the situation of the internet and showing me ways, alternative ways, like Signal does. I'm not sure if I'm 100% convinced, but maybe that starts me to believe that they started thinking about this as well.
Hello. Hi. I think I missed the first part of the workshop about, and I agree with what's already have been said. And also there's an aspect of discover, if I'll be discoverable or not. Sometimes a online space that feels very public, if I'm not that discoverable and not identifiable, I feel more private, but it's like a minor aspect added to what's already been said.
Yeah, those are really wonderful thoughts. And also, I guess, yeah, I guess one, I think half formed or raw thoughts are really great. It's really important because that's where like generativeness come out, and that's where the community statement becomes stronger, in my opinion. So feel free to just state any kind of half formed thought. I have a lot of them too. And so yeah, I think the thoughts that's being brought up is a really good starting point. Like business model, what it's like the goals, the stating a clear goal, whether a company states, whether the goal that they're stating actually matches what they say they're doing. It seems like that's something that like the public awareness is becoming more conscious of. And I think that's a great thing. I also think it's interesting sorry, is it Yammer?
Yeah, Yağmur.
Yamor. Thank you, Yamor. So what you pointed out relating to, okay, so Signal says this. How do I know? How do I believe it? Is it just because a bunch of ethical coders says yes to this, or like what is it? Is it enough? Is it okay or enough for for me to just trust based on like someone's track record or like what they have done before, like honoring a system. And so I think this is super interesting to me because I like throughout this process I've been thinking a lot about like the comparison between like network spaces versus like public spaces, and in a sense it's like a lot of people might not know the details of like urban planning, or might not know like how like building codes work. but if we ask people like from this neighborhood, what do you think about the park on the corner? Like what do you think is lacking? What do you think it needs? Do you feel safe there? Do you feel safe when you bring your kids there? Or do you feel like your needs are being met when you're in that space? It's like almost everybody I talk to have some kind of opinion of like what they think about the park as a kind of urban space. And even like relating to like, safety or sense of risk and whatnot, or a sense of playfulness, there can be a lot of different things. But when it comes to software, like what is actually happening of like software as a kind of like public space is so hidden away from us that there's like no, it's like we're not able to engage with it at that level, or that sense of like socialized intuition, collective experience is often tucked away for people who like know how to read code.
You brought up urban planning. When I think of physical public spaces, a bunch of us can be in them and just show up in this public space of the park, or I don't know, I think about subway platforms and things like that, or the city street. I live in a city. And then the online spaces aren't really wide open. You're always inside, I think, I may be overstating it, inside your feed, on your page, in that, there's something less public feeling online that's, and I don't know what to say about, but that's, as you were talking about urban planning, that struck me like, even though probably we could say, how do we all feel on Twitter? And maybe we would respond similar to the park, and so I don't know. I'm just, I'm sure no one's looking for a hard, bright line, but what makes something public and private is why I was very interested to come today to hear what people have to say. And are there places where you just kind of show up online that are like a park, or are we not seeing that we're already channeled into a room inside the, and there are already a lot of consents that we've given already, like not even just with the data, but what we'll see, or who we get to be near, or I'll stop there. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm really talking too much today, so I'm going to pass back.
No, I feel like those are really wonderful, really fruitful thoughts. I mean, comparing Twitter to a park might potentially help us. I mean, depending if it's a good park. I mean, yeah, if it's a park I like, like I think maybe like some of these things can begin to get unpacked in terms of like, or that's what I think. That's what I'm interested in terms of like, what makes Twitter as a public space so significantly different from the park the park I like, where I feel safe, and where I would go like meet my friends at. Like what are like why do these two spaces feel so different? And what are, you know, like if there's a park that I like, I can maybe list out a couple of features about it. You know, for me, when I go to that park, you know, it's not a case where, you know, like I am recognized by the things I say or kind of get rewarded by what I say, right? It's more that, you know, like because conversation happen in spheres, and it doesn't ever you know, it doesn't have this hyper visibility quality of Twitter. And so what does that, or how do we kind of like reverse that and think about, okay, so what kind of Twitter do we want, or like what's the alternative? What's a park Twitter, or what's a park similar, you know, thing that can be mapped onto the ways we think about networking?
I think this park metaphor is really it's really helping me think. I think one other thing to bring up can be, so in talking in terms of space makes a lot of sense. I think one thing to bring up could be time. I feel like on Twitter, you're traceable. What you said today is available forever unless you delete it. And if you, we're at a point in which we cannot really delete our digital footprint anymore. And I feel like at a park, I'm not being tracked or traced. And in some ways, a public park can feel more private than the internet to me, because what I say happens in that moment and cannot be traced unless someone's recording me, which is not the case. But in the internet, it's the opposite. So maybe that's an interesting fact to me, to think in terms of time as well as space.
I totally agree. I think that's really, I mean, you're just like restating my interest for me basically, which is great. But I think, you know, it's, you know, at a park, there's a very clear, relatively clear sense. I mean, yeah, I mean, there are cases, of course, there can be cases, there's CCTV, but at least you can see the CCTV, right? Like, or hopefully, you know, some of them you can't, but there is a very clear sense, it seems to me, of like just being able to recognize changes spatially, recognize, you know, architectural changes or spatial changes, environment changes, and being able to parse that out. Versus, you know, if someone install a tracker or copy your data, put it somewhere else, like, you know, most often than not, you don't know. There's no way to know that. So then if we were to like bring those kinds of ideas back of like, well, we don't want CCTV system in our park, but if we do want it in some instances, what are those instances where we do want CCTV? You know, and why is that? and then how, and then that set of protocols, that set of understanding of like when certain risk factor needs to be monitored, like how do we bring that back into the internet and whether it fits?
I'm not quite picking up where you just left off, Jing, but going back to that anonymity piece. Well, actually, so picturing a park, and outside the park, there's a sign with rules. So they're very short rules. They're much easier than the consent or code of conduct that we, you know, and it closes at night, possibly. So there are rules. So there are rules everywhere. But on Twitter, let's say, the only concern is like what's illegal. I mean, I'm simplifying. So, but in the park, the idea is, the way I read it, is these rules are designed so that we, there's a we versus a me awareness. We can all enjoy it better if we adhere to these rules. On the internet, in the public spaces or seemingly public spaces, it doesn't seem like they're being designed for a reason in terms of the code of conduct. It's just avoiding trouble. It's just policing the thing we're afraid of. And so that first part where whoever wrote those rules was like, all right, this is going to be good for us. That's what they meant. Now, somebody could say, I don't care, and play their radio really loud or spit or whatever they usually say you can't do. But, and it's not illegal. So it's not about that. Then the park could be peopled by people who will say something like, hey, you should stop that. And then that space can be maintained potentially or not. It moves from there. But the rules for how we could all have a good experience, or the experience we want, I think is the approach that's missing. And that gets mixed with purpose, right? Like, so if we understand the purpose, if I don't mind that you're making money off of my data, okay. You know, if that's what I want to help you do, maybe it's not Facebook, it's some small organization saving the world, and I can help them by giving, you know. So I think the questions of risk also kind of mix in with the rules and why did we write the rules?
I think that what you just said like touches on something that's so crucial, and it's brought up by the consent for texting quite a lot, and which is obviously extremely inspired this project. The sense of like when I go to a park, there is a kind of like social contract or code or whatever we call that, of like we want to make sure I kind of want to make make sure that everybody kind of have a good time. So I'm not gonna like be the self I am when I'm, I don't know, in my bathroom or something. and there's a kind of like collective like, I mean, the worst case social norms, but also a sense of togetherness, right? Or a sense of like, we're seeing each other, we're acknowledging each other. and if something goes off, someone say, hey, you shouldn't do this. If they, if it doesn't end up going to the police force, which is a whole other question. If that possibility of like, I can just go up to someone and be like, hey, you shouldn't do this, without everyone else in the park hearing that, which is what happens on Twitter, right? And everybody like gather and congregate and be like, no, don't do it. So it's like that's a very different kinds of situation, but it also like requires so much more commitment, I think, or like effort, and it's like that effort, that commitment, for me seems so much like, because our body is involved, like when we're at the park, where digitally it's like, it's so easy to check out. It's like the body that we kind of spread out, on the network, our data body is not felt oftentimes. Hi, Caleb.
Hi, congratulations.
Would you like to just say your name and your pronouns and give a visual description of yourself to everybody?
Did you say a visual description? Okay. So I'm Caleb. I use they, them pronouns. And I don't know, I have curly hair. I'm Caucasian, I'm non-binary, like gender fluid, and I'm wearing a black shirt, and I'm in my room in California, Stevenson Ranch.
Thank you so much for doing that. So I don't know. It's like really hard to monitor the chat on Zoom, but I'm not sure what point you came in. But yeah, we're just talking about the relationship between network space and public, so far specifically urban spaces, and how if I may summarize, like how like rules with, or agreement that has been kind of like learned, socializing to us on like how to navigate those spaces, sort of manifest in the public space versus the network, which there's like very little, well, yeah, very different sense of intuition for that. Okay, so with that in mind, I think maybe we can kind of like go into the space, the software, if that's all right. And maybe we can like do a little test. I mean, so by the way, so I think someone mentioned, like without using the word capitalism, like relating to like, how like maybe Google's like business model of like how their business model of like making money off, right? And so so I think this is another note, which is a invitation to be gentle with this this little thing that me and 2 other people built. So we're not a startup, and will never be. So please just I think some invitation of patience and like suggestion is very welcomed. So let me get the link. So by the way, if you open it on your Chrome or Firefox browser, that's gonna make things easier. So, so here's kind of relevant to what we just talked about. This is, we're entering like the privacy scenario that I'm describing, or actually to be more accurate, Nema and I work on the writing together. We are describing as sitting at the park. So you and a friend are sitting in your usual corner of the park on a picnic blanket, speaking among each other. And down here, there's like a kind of like technical expansion on what does this metaphor mean exactly. And if you click on any of the dig deeper link, it just basically bring you back to one of the chapters in the Code of Consent that address the privacy mode we're in right now. So I'm gonna click sounds good. I'm enthusiastic to participate. And feel free to like pause anytime, by the way. If you like want to pause and stop and be like, no, I'm not feeling enthusiastic, that's totally fine too. And you're also welcome to just participate through voice or through Zoom and not through this, if you like. Okay, so I guess first thing, so where we're at right now is, and also I like love like name suggestions or word suggestions. So if you have, yeah, we can talk later if you have that. But we're on the ephemeral channel right now, which is the peer-to-peer channel. Right now, if you are seeing, I see like 6 people on here right now. Do everybody see 6 people or like 6 squares under sitting at the park?
I see 7.
Oh, so I'm missing 1 for some reason. Okay, I'm just gonna continue and go with this for a second. Okay, so here, if you are seeing this right now, we're inside of sitting at the park. And essentially what this means is we are communicating now from browser to browser directly. Like nothing we send to each other right now is going to be sent through a server. Of course, it's kind of a trick statement because we are being live streamed right now. so the recorded content is being sent through a server. So it's a little tricky, a little funny situation. But just know that this is what the software is supposed to do. So the first thing I would invite you to do is going to the bottom left and click on anonymous and write down, like, give yourself a name. It doesn't have to be your real name if you don't want to. Just has to be a name that we can know you by. Okay, by the way, I'm like just like slightly, just like a quick notice, like, people who are watching this live stream, if you can kindly not join the instance, that would be very helpful, because this place only holds 12 people. So so like, if one of us can join, it will be kind of difficult. Okay, so so now you can also change your color if you don't like your avatar color, or if you want higher contrast between your avatar and the orange background for some reason. I'm gonna go with my default purple blue. And so here, when you click on the screen, the orange area, you can give focus to that area. And when you enter like the arrow keys, you can move around. So a lot of thinking behind this is like, how do we represent the way data works and how data is distributed inside of through a UI, through a user interface context, and through like, experience interaction. So, instead of going with like kind of like a regular vanilla like text chat format, which I think is a little deceptive of like what is actually happening, it kind of just like went south and just this is what happened. So basically, I'm going to start by asking the same question, and maybe, if you'll feel like this is an okay place to start brainstorming, we can begin to just like write down some of the ideas that either you have said or someone else have said, or maybe want to respond to something that someone has said, and we can just, figure out from there. So here I'm going to write, okay, so I just wrote a message. When the message is being written, what you have to do is walk up right next to it, either on one of the four sides. Diagonal is not going to work. It needs to be one of the four sides, and you can read it. So this is the, kind of the same question, like rephrased just a little bit. So if we can like spend a couple minutes to respond to this, that would be great. So the way you respond is here. Oh, sorry. I also see that I don't think my full screen is captured. It's kind of awkward. A lot of windows here. Oops. Okay. Are you able to see everything now on my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So here I'm going to just like show you a simple response. So whenever you like go to one of the four sides of the text, what I'm calling the text record, the message record, when you see that like kind of like faint blue highlight that has overlaid on top of the message, it means that you can respond now. You can reply to it. So I'm going to say this is a test response. And when I write a message like right next to that original message, it creates a thread, or it starts a thread. So, and you can also delete your own message unless you get disconnected, because if you get disconnected, you come back as a new person, right? Because it's not a logging system, like doesn't know who you are. So if you get disconnected by the network and come back, you cannot delete your message, which is some imperfection here. But I'm going to delete my message right now, and yeah, feel free to begin answering this question, or if you have a better question, feel free to start another thread. Yeah, but I thought we can start here. By the way, if there's any questions, please let me know. Yeah, so I'm gonna show this again. So I'm moving right now, I'm the avatar. And this message, it's in the same color as me. So they are the messages I left. If you want to reply to a message, all you have to do is neighbor your avatar so that it's like adjacent to the message, and just type your message right next to it. Let me know if there's other questions.
I have a question. So the purple blocks in the middle are your question, and the only way for me to see them is that if I neighbor you like this, right?
Yes.
What if all of your edges are taken up by people? Is that why it's only 12 people who can use the platform? Or if someone neighbors me, can they also read the question?
So creating a thread is kind of like, you can think of it as like building a Lego block. So you can just keep building, keep stacking. So if someone's connected to me, they are part of the thread too. So you can just go next to them to read the whole message. Does that make sense? Okay, also, I just want to be mindful of time. And I would like to ask if people would be okay to stay 5 more minutes. So it'll be like 6:05 in New York.
That's fine.
Sounds good to me as well.
Thank you.
Ask.
If someone's not okay with that, feel free to just, I guess, let me know through the Zoom chat would be the easiest. Okay, so let's aim to finish answering this question like 6:01, like 2 minutes, if that's all right. Okay, so I'm going to do a soft pause right now. I know some people might have unfinished thoughts or are still digesting what other people have to say. And maybe, if you're interested, we can absolutely continue this on Discord, which is like obviously a more permanent platform that's not experimental. We still have to test this out a lot. But at this moment, I want to show you the archival feature and basically what the software is supposed to do as well. So maybe we can take a moment and read people's message. And I guess maybe I'll take a kind of more leading role. So in terms of the answers that we have, Victoria says, I think I would want to know what forgetting looks like digitally and trust my digital memory to flow like water. CC says, I would like to make sure that the software doesn't own the rights to my data. Also, I find algorithms that suggest things for you to be annoying because it's easy to get stuck in circular reasoning. Margarita says, transparency about how my information data is being used in a clear, concise way beyond legalese. And Yammer said clarity and transparency, as well as info about how my online presence is being archived. Oh, and here's a separate thread. Thank you, Victoria, for starting that. Victoria said, has anyone failed digitally embodied? I said almost never. I think that is what VR wants me to fail, but I always feel very disembodied when I'm in a supposedly digital and visually immersive environment. CC said, I feel a disconnection between my gender identity and digital media. It often provides me a way in my artistic practice to experiment and present myself without traditional limit. Interesting. Great. So I guess what I am interested in asking you all right now, or my kind of request or ask of everybody now is there any message that you have written here, or is there any messages that you have written here that you feel like, I don't want this to be archived into the database, like I want this to disappear, and I don't feel comfortable for this to be archived into like part of this workshop. And actually, if you feel that way, you can go ahead right now and delete your message by, again, by going next to your message and like click on the X deleting button. Okay, so I'm gonna give a couple more seconds to that. Please like tell me if you like need me to stop, because it's hard to know when I can't really talk to everybody. Okay, so we have to move on now. So what the last thing that we need to do is archiving. So the way to archive a message is by clicking on this like database icon on the right. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do it because we're at time. I'm just like, I'm anxious about that right now. So I'm gonna click this, and consent to archive is the feature where we have to all collectively say yes to archive this thread in order for it to be sent to the database. So I'm going to initiate consent to archive. This is all covered in like the consent to archive or code of consent document. Click on this, and I requested consent to archive to all of you. So if you like, click on I understand and I'm enthusiastic to participate. And now we're in this mode, the consent to archive mode. And this is the instruction here. So review the highlighted message to decide if you would like to be archived. And hopefully we kind of all reviewed it together. Once you have come to a decision, enter S to stop the process or Y to give your consent. So by the way, what we just discovered this morning is that it has to be a lowercase y. So make sure your cap lock is not on. It's like a quirk that we'll have to figure out. So if you hit Y right now, you should see this screen that says consent received. And click on continue, and hopefully everybody can do that. Okay, I just stopped it because we're at time. And I think, yeah, the interpreter really has to go. So this is the idea. If I have your consent, I will help you archive it once there's less people in this room, and yeah, and we have more time to do it. So can you just let me know in the chat if it's okay with you, and I'll consent it right after the workshop, or I'll archive it right after the workshop. When something is archived, when something is archived, it gets displayed here. So just give you a little preview. I'll send this link to you. You can return to this link and see your archive message here after we log off. So since this is connected to the database, it's always going to be there. It's not going to disappear once we archive it. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Veronica. Sorry for running over time. And thank you all for being here and trying this with me.